Hey, David Brewster here, new episode of Chordplay, and this is the Chords of Blood Incantation, and I've had some requests to feature this band, but honestly, I'm putting this together for myself because I love these guys. I've been ranting about their album from last year, Absolute Elsewhere. I've ranted about it here, I've ranted about it on Facebook, I've ranted about it to my friends. They're probably tired of hearing me talk about Blood Incantation. Great band. They formed in Denver, Colorado in 2011, and it's kind of an interesting group. I mean, I'm going to call it progressive cosmic death metal. That seems to kind of fit the bill. And a really interesting band. Their lyrics typically talk about these kind of cosmic, outer space and death, and, really interesting group and very different than the norm. So buckle up. Here we go. Okay, a quick word about their logo. I actually tried to find Blood Incantation in that crazy logo, and at first I thought maybe it was a joke or something, and then I looked it up, and I actually found this image where somebody's trying to show you that it actually does say Blood Incantation, but it's totally hidden. But check this out. So in the guitar department, we have Paul Riddell and Morris Kolantursky. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Morris is from Russia, and that's a funky last name, Kolantursky. But these guys definitely work well together. Harmonized parts, there's clean guitar parts, there's of course heavy death metal riffs and stuff like that, guitar solos, and some interplay between the guitars. Definitely great guitarists. So the chord-based and rhythm guitar parts in this lesson came from 3 Blood Incantation albums. Keep in mind, in their career, they've released 4 studio albums, 3 EPs. There's also 3 demos flying around out there somewhere. And their album Time Wave Zero actually doesn't feature any guitar or drums. It's mainly synthesizer and bass, I think, on that album. And it's very Tangerine Dream, kind of cosmic, ambient instrumental stuff. That's a cool album, but obviously we're not going to feature that in this lesson. But here's the image with the album covers where I pulled music from. So with the opening, that's the Stargate Tablet 1 from Absolute Elsewhere. It's a great song. And there's 2 guitars there, so I'm going to use the MXR clone looper to kind of help me out. Guitar 1 is doing those low growling power chords. Keep in mind, we're in drop C in this lesson. I did give you the tuning heads up. So tune down a whole step and then tune to drop D, and you're in drop C, technically. Way down there. But guitar 1 is doing the power chords down here. Right? Really basic stuff, nothing hard, like an E flat. If you think of the tuning we're in, even though I'm not referring to the, drop tuning, but just like on the fretboard, that would be like an E flat if we were in regular drop D. And then right there, the 4th fret to the 3rd fret, and we're grabbing that B flat back there. And do that again. That last chord's like the open strings, right? So that would technically be a C5 right there in this tuning, as far as the pitch. And then that guitar just loops that riff over and over. It's like the end of the world right there. And then guitar 2, I think this is Morris, and he's doing... Right, and that's an interesting little melodic pattern. And you're just doing that over and over right there. And then, so he he doubles that, and then he starts doing, they're basically slid pinch harmonics. And I don't think I've ever actually heard this before, but like this. And you gotta find that sweet spot, which I had trouble at first, but then I found it. There's a sweet spot, and you can match those harmonics perfectly. And that's weird, because you're doing a pinch harmonic, but you're also sliding it. You put those guitars together, it's really interesting, really, you know, there's a lot of tension obviously right there, but that's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Next up's the song Subterranean Aeon. This is from the EP, Interdimensional Extinction. And once again, there's two guitars. One's playing growling, low power chords, and the other one's doing this single note kind of melodic thing. So guitar one's doing this. It's very similar to what we started with, but it's different, like this. Thought of that like just regular drop D, that'd be like a G5, B5, E5, E flat 5, even though technically we're a whole step lower than that. But that's kind of what's going on right there. And then the second guitar, once again, I think this is Morris, he's doing... And it's off the open G right there. You put those guitars together, it's really cool. Next up's the opening to the Message Tablet 1. This is from Absolute Elsewhere, and this is really interesting, these chords. So this is really interesting, and keep in mind we're tuned down a whole step and then drop D, and we're playing that. So that's an implied B flat major 7, but there's no third right there. It's just roots and fifths and a major 7th in there, so there's no third, but an implied B flat major 7. And don't play the high E, it's just the low E to the B string. Right? So you don't want to expand that all the way up to the high E there on the 10th fret. So you don't want to do that, do this. And then move it down here, and that's an F major 7 implied right there. F major 7, no third. Back to that B flat. Move that up a whole step, now that's a C major 7, no third. And then they add this on top, and that's like an implied C sus2. Like that. So you're doing... Here's the thrash riff from the Message Tablet 1. This takes place around 509, and this was the riff of the year last year, like this. something like that. And I'm alternate strumming that. I guess they might be doing all downstrokes. I'm not really sure. But it just, that riff kicks ass right here. Like that. That's what it looks and sounds like slow. One more time. But it just totally moshes through that. So you're doing this chord slide, the F to E, and then you're doing this 8th to 7th kind of, one finger power chords right there on the low E and A string. So there's 2 sets of that. And then you're going to slide that 5th and the 6th, that one finger power chord. And then you're going to slide that technically E flat back to D. And then you're going to do that 6th to 5th again, and then just start pummeling that low E open. Like that. That riff totally kicks ass. Next up we have some clean guitar parts. This is Inner Paths to Outer Space from the album Hidden History of the Human Race. And this is clean, but we're doing something like this. Really cool. Repeating that part. It actually is clean first, and then they add distortion, and they start doing the same riff with distortion too. So that chord right there, it's 1 fretted note and 2 open strings, and that's an implied E flat major 7 right here. So it's implied, it's not a full E flat major 7 chord, but we're basically fretting that E flat, then the open D and open G string with it. Like that, and then move to the 8th fret right there, and that's an F6 sus2 implied. And this little single note pattern here, kind of like a little melody right there, and it goes right back to that E flat major 7. Next up's the song Hovering Lifeless. This is also from the EP Interdimensional Extinction. There's 2 guitars here, and they're both clean. And guitar 1's doing something like this. That's a C sharp flat 5 right there, and you're playing the G string, then the high E, then the B, and you just kind of repeat that pattern. Then you add that D note right there. That's like an implied D major 7 sus 4, I guess. Like that, but you're doing... And then right there you're adding that D and that F note, like that. And then that's the first guitar part. Guitar 2's hanging out over here. So that first shape right there, it's like a C sharp power chord, then the open G strings in there too. So a C sharp, add sharp 11 implied, and then a C sharp flat 5 right there. But you put those guitars together and it's really cool and real dreary. Next up's the Message Tablet 2. This is from Absolute Elsewhere, and this is the Pink Floyd section. You know, when you start that song and you cruise along, at one point it noticeably changes into Animals era Pink Floyd, or at least that's what I hear. It's so awesome. Like this. right there, basically we're doing a D minor up on top with the open D string. And then you're moving to that 5th fret bar right there. That's like an implied, what, D7 sus2 right there? Like that. D7 sus2 with no 3rd technically. And you're going back and forth with that part. B-flat minor add sharp 11 down here. Just think of a B-flat minor bar chord, but play the high E open. And there's your B-flat minor add sharp 11, and it's like that. And then you're playing with this A minor 7 right there. Open A and then strum the chord. And right there, move that G back to an F sharp. Now it's an A minor 6 implied. Like that. And then go back to that D minor, D7 sus2. So check that song out. If you're a Pink Floyd fan, you have to listen to that, because the first time I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds like Animals. That's so cool. Okay, last but not least is the Stargate Tablet 3 from Absolute Elsewhere, and somewhere around 3:40 in the song, you're going to hear this kick-ass riff. Something like this. Or something like that. And we're basically playing with this E flat 5 right there. And you're going to hear the chord, and we're basically doing this. So it's like the chord, the root note, the chord, and then there's 2 harmonics on the 7th fret on the A right there. So real slow. Like that. And that's kind of tricky. It's kind of unusual. And then you're doing that. So that E to B flat, A, E to G, but end up on that A again. Right? And then you do that riff again with the harmonic. And that time you're basically doing the exact same thing. You're going to end up on that C sharp with a pinch harmonic right there. And then do the first riff again. And the last time right here. And that's harmonized. That's really weird. So really slow. It's a really bizarro riff, but I really dug it. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with this look at the Chords of Blood Incantation, and definitely this is a kick-ass band that I've definitely been checking out and listening to, pretty much over the last year and a half or so. I definitely remember hearing their name and maybe seeing a couple album covers, but I didn't really dive in. And it wasn't until I heard Absolute Elsewhere, and it just moshed my socks off. There's Pink Floyd, kind of textures and sounds and moods in there. So like I mentioned at the beginning, they really are kind of like progressive cosmic death metal. They have space rock influences, progressive rock, progressive metal, death metal. I mean, they really do sound like a mix between Morbid Angel and Pink Floyd, which is really cool and very unusual, but I really dig it. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Nail Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.